Louisiana's history is rich with culture, music, and traditions, but it also has a side that's rarely spoken about in the open. Behind the vibrant streets and historic landmarks are stories of individuals who rose to power in ways that left a lasting impact. These are names that created fear and commanded respect, shaping a different kind of history in their cities. Today, we're uncovering the stories of the most dangerous gang members in Louisiana. Who were they? What made them so dangerous? And how did their actions leave a mark that people still talk about today? Get ready for a closer look at the figures who defined some ruthless moments in Louisiana's streets. Number 8. Jaden Carter. Jaden Carter, a native of Covington, Louisiana, emerged as a prominent and dangerous figure in the criminal activities of the West 30th neighborhood. At the center of his criminal trajectory was his affiliation with a violent organization referred to as the Vulture Gang, or Hunger Gang. This gang was notorious for its involvement in various forms of neighborhood violence, including armed incidents, assaults, and the distribution of illicit substances. Carter's role within the gang was solidified as he engaged in numerous acts that created an atmosphere of fear and lawlessness in the community. One of the key events tied to Carter's dangerous reputation occurred on July 16, 2020. On this day, he participated in a drive-by targeting a residence on North Pontchartrain Drive in Lacombe, Louisiana. Witnesses reported that a gray Hyundai Sonata, later confirmed as the suspect vehicle, was seen at the scene before shots were fired at the home, which was occupied by 2 adults and 3 children. Although no one was physically harmed, the act underscored the reckless violence associated with Carter and his affiliates. Investigators determined that Carter was the driver of the vehicle, while his co-conspirators, Ivory and Jontarius McDowell, were passengers. Faber was later identified as the one who discharged the firearm. In October 2020, a grand jury indicted Carter and 17 others connected to the Vulture Gang on an extensive list of charges, marking one of the largest racketeering cases in the region's history. The investigation, involving local and federal law enforcement, revealed the gang's systemic use of violence to maintain control and intimidate witnesses. Carter's charges included 5 counts of assault related to the drive-by shooting, aggravated damage to property, obstruction of justice, and other serious offenses. In court, Carter ultimately pled guilty to multiple charges, leading to a cumulative sentence of 25 years at hard labor for racketeering, with additional sentences for second-degree battery, assault, and other criminal activities. His involvement in the gang's operations, including the targeting of rivals, and today he is now serving his sentence in a state prison. Number 7. Darren Carter. Darren Carter is name and a figure tied to a web of criminal activities and alleged gang affiliations in Louisiana. Known for his connection to the Gremlins, a group linked to violent acts across Acadia, Lafayette, St. Martin, and Vermilion parishes, Carter's story is one of repeated run-ins with the law and a reputation that has left many on edge. His criminal record, spanning over a decade, paints a picture of a man whose life has been marked by chaos and conflict. Carter's troubles began as early as 2012, with incidents like resisting arrest and theft. However, his alleged involvement with the Gremlins brought him into sharper focus. In 2015, he was indicted alongside 16 others on charges of racketeering, conspiracy, and engaging in criminal street gang activity. The indictment accused the group of using violence to maintain control and dominance in their territory. Around the same time, Carter was arrested in connection with the demise of Christopher Trent, a 32-year-old man from Rain. Though he posted bond and was released, the case remained unresolved. In 2018, Carter's name resurfaced in connection with another tragic event, the death of 16-year-old Chaston Guidry in Abbeville. Carter was arrested and held on a $500,000 bond, which was later reduced to $25,000, sparking outrage from Guidry's family. Despite posting bond, Carter was immediately rearrested on the earlier charge related to Trent's demise, with his bail set at $750,000. This back and forth between arrests and releases highlighted the complexities of his legal battles. Carter's alleged activities didn't stop there. In 2019, he was involved in a shooting in New Iberia, where he was injured. In a social media video, he recounted the incident, claiming he was targeted but didn't know by whom. This event added another layer to his already controversial life. Despite his injuries, Carter continued to face multiple charges, including illegal possession of firearms and involvement in violent acts. As of now, Carter's legal battles are far from over. He remains a central figure in the ongoing case against the Gremlins, with his past actions continuing to cast a long shadow. Number 6. Darren Carter. Darren Carter, a native of Abbeville, Louisiana, emerged as a key figure within the notorious group identified as the Gremlin Gang, an organization accused of disruptive and dangerous activities in communities across Acadiana. At just 17 years old, Carter became widely known following a highly publicized Crime Stoppers video featuring former law enforcement officer and now U.S. Representative Clay Higgins, who directly called out Carter and other alleged members of the group. Higgins described Carter as someone who had gained notoriety for his actions, but dismissed his influence, portraying him as a symbol of youthful recklessness within the alleged gang. Carter's association with the Gremlin Gang became the focal point of law enforcement investigations aimed at dismantling the organization. Authorities linked Carter and others to alleged incidents of violence, community intimidation, and illegal activities that placed entire neighborhoods on edge. He faced charges that included 6 counts of attempted harm, accusations that significantly raised his profile as a purportedly dangerous individual. These charges eventually led to his arrest after Carter turned himself in to the Abbeville Police Department, accompanied by his family, following intense pressure and public attention. During his time in custody, Carter was held at the Vermilion Parish Correctional Center on a $1 million bond. However, after 3 months in jail, all 6 charges were dropped. The sudden dismissal of these allegations led to public debates, with some claiming Carter had been unfairly targeted due to overzealous policing and misrepresentation of the so-called Gremlin Gang. Carter later described the intense scrutiny and public attention during this period as a life-altering experience. Despite his release, he faced ongoing challenges, including a parole violation for relocating without notifying his probation officer. This parole violation landed him back in jail temporarily in 2022, but did not deter him from seeking a new direction for his life. Today, Carter, now 25, claims to have left his past behind and is focused on a career in music. He has signed a $1 million recording deal with Cash Money Records, crediting the opportunity to his determination to rise above his hardships. Number 5. Dwight GB White. Dwight GB White. Washington is a notorious figure in the New Orleans gang scene, primarily associated with the Ghost Gang, a violent faction based in the Calliope housing development in Central City. Washington's criminal activities and gang affiliations have earned him a reputation as a dangerous and volatile member of this group, especially noted for his involvement in gang-related violence and the rap culture that fuels many of these conflicts. Washington's ties to the Ghost Gang were significant, and he often made his identity known through social media and music videos. He was not just a member but an active participant in the gang's violent disputes, particularly against rival gangs such as the Bird Gang, which controlled areas near the former Magnolia housing development. These rivalries often escalated into bloodshed, and Washington's role in this ongoing war was prominent, especially in the years leading up to his arrest. One of the most significant events tied to Washington's criminal record was the deadly shooting on June 15, 2017. In the middle of a busy New Orleans intersection, a gold sedan driven by Washington or someone connected to him opened fire on a car carrying members of the Bird Gang. The shooting resulted in termination of Darryl Micey Pollard, 28, and Taryn Baby Trilla Young, 19, while 2 others survived but were injured. The crime was rooted in the escalating gang violence between the Ghost Gang and the Bird Gang. The motive behind the shooting was linked to a rap feud, with Washington's rival Pollard having taunted him in a diss track on SoundCloud. Washington, known for his volatile behavior, responded with deadly force, seeing it as a challenge to his honor and position in the gang world. He was also known for making threats on social media, including ominous tweets like, "You gonna die trying to get clout off of me," and "Since you like so much attention, I can put you on the news." The assassination weapon was traced back to Washington through surveillance footage, cell phone data, and social media posts that showcased him with a similar assault rifle. The victims' families and witnesses testified during the trial, though none claimed to have directly witnessed the shooting. Despite the lack of direct eyewitness testimony, prosecutors presented a strong circumstantial case, connecting Washington to the scene via cell phone tracking and the distinctive weapon used in the crime. Washington was arrested in March 2018 after being extradited from California. He faced 2 counts of second-degree manslaughter and 2 counts of attempted second-degree manslaughter. Additionally, he was charged with obstructing justice for his role in tampering with evidence. In March 2019, Washington was sentenced to mandatory life imprisonment for each of the 2 manslaughters. As of his sentencing, Washington's criminal career appears to be at an end, with life sentences on the horizon. Today, he currently remains incarcerated, serving his life sentences at the Louisiana State Penitentiary. Number 4. Ivory Brandon Harris. Ivory Brandon Harris, widely known as B Stupid, is a figure who rose to notoriety in New Orleans, Louisiana. Born around 1985, Harris became a prominent associate of the Dooney Boys, a group from the Magnolia Project's public housing community. His history is steeped in allegations of significant unlawful activities, and his reputation was built on the fear he cultivated in both New Orleans and Houston. Authorities linked him to numerous acts of violence and operations involving controlled substances, painting him as a dangerous and calculated individual. As a juvenile, Harris was detained multiple times, facing charges ranging from possession of prohibited items to allegations of violence. Despite these early accusations, he often evaded significant penalties due to witness refusals to testify. One such case involved the loss of a key witness in a 2005 Central City incident, leading to the charges being dropped shortly before Hurricane Katrina. The storm's aftermath saw him relocated temporarily, but his activities persisted. Harris's movements between New Orleans and Houston after the hurricane placed him at the center of investigations into several violent incidents. By late 2005, law enforcement described him as a critical figure connected to a surge of dangerous events, implicating him in multiple acts of harm. In early 2006, he was apprehended briefly, but released on bail. Soon after, he became the subject of a manhunt for further allegations of unlawful actions. His eventual capture in March 2006 at a Kenner apartment marked a significant turning point. The search uncovered substances, firearms, and cash, solidifying his ties to organized unlawful activities. While in custody, Harris attempted to influence ongoing investigations, further demonstrating his reach. In 2007, he entered a plea agreement admitting to involvement in certain offenses, resulting in a 25-year federal sentence. This deal allowed him to avoid a life sentence for an incident linked to a fatal encounter in early 2006. Harris remains incarcerated at the United States Penitentiary, Lee, with a scheduled release in January 2029. Number 3. Devont Davis. Devont Davis, a 23-year-old man from Shreveport, Louisiana, found himself in the spotlight for his involvement in a series of criminal activities that reflect a dangerous presence in his community. He was sentenced to nearly 120 years in prison on October 11, 2023, for his participation in a robbery and violent altercation outside the El Compadre Mexican restaurant in Shreveport on July 29, 2017. Davis and an accomplice waited outside the restaurant, planning to take a purse from a woman. When her son intervened, he was shot twice, suffering life-threatening injuries. Davis and his co-defendant fled the scene, leaving behind critical evidence that would later lead to their identification. The evidence linking Davis to the crime included bloody clothing found near the scene and DNA analysis from the Louisiana State Police Crime Lab. The victim survived after multiple surgeries and months of rehabilitation, an outcome that left the community shaken and inspired widespread support for the family. Davis was also connected to a separate case involving the demise of Juan Antonio Reyes, which further solidified his image as a member of the criminal underworld. His arrest came after a warrant was issued for his involvement in attempted manslaughter, armed robbery, and the violent confrontation outside El Compadre. Despite being just 17 at the time of the crime, Davis's actions and the harm caused were far-reaching, earning him a long sentence. Authorities also connected him to illicit substance-related activities, though specifics of such crimes were less documented. Davis was initially placed in juvenile detention and later transferred to adult custody, awaiting trial for his various crimes. Davis's affiliation with criminal groups has been confirmed by law enforcement, and his role in violent acts marks him as a dangerous individual in the local gang scene. His position within these groups remains unclear, but his involvement in multiple violent incidents and his apparent lack of remorse suggest he held a significant role in orchestrating and carrying out such actions. After being sentenced in 2023, Devont Davis was placed in the Louisiana prison system to serve his sentences consecutively, amounting to 117 years. Number 2. Doris Antonio Hardy. Doris Antonio Hardy, a 23-year-old from Shreveport, Louisiana, has been identified as a dangerous gang member with a history of violent criminal activities that highlight his disregard for human life. His involvement with a Shreveport-based gang and his series of escalating criminal actions paint a picture of a life dominated by crime, leading to multiple arrests and convictions. Hardy's ties to a Shreveport gang were evident in his behavior and actions, particularly in his interactions with rival gang members. His gang affiliation played a significant role in the events leading to his arrests and convictions. One of the most notable incidents involving Hardy occurred in December 2020 when he was implicated in the manslaughter of Jacoby Ware, a 20-year-old victim who was shot and terminated in a parking lot at West 70th Street and Pines Road in Shreveport. On March 25, 2021, Hardy was indicted by a Caddo Parish grand jury for second-degree manslaughter in Ware's demise. He was arraigned on April 6, 2021, and released on a $250,000 bond. Despite facing serious charges, Hardy continued to engage in violent activities, underscoring his dangerous nature. Less than a year after his release on March 14, 2022, Hardy was involved in a rolling gun battle near Ivory Drive and East Washington Street, close to a Montessori school. Shreveport police officers responded to reports of two cars shooting at each other. At the scene, officers found two individuals outside a vehicle with a bullet hole in the rear window and located Hardy nearby on East Washington Street. A search of Hardy's vehicle revealed 6 spent shell casings, and a Glock 22 Gen 4 pistol was discovered in the bed of a pickup truck belonging to an uninvolved bystander. Investigators matched the shell casings to the Glock, which Hardy had stashed in the truck after the shootout. Hardy admitted that the shootout stemmed from a confrontation with a rival gang member he encountered earlier that day during a court hearing related to his second-degree murder charge. Believing the rival gang member was following him after court, Hardy armed himself and engaged in the shootout. Hardy's actions led to a federal indictment in May 2022 for receiving a firearm while under indictment. The court denied his bond, citing his danger to the community. In August 2023, Hardy stood trial in Caddo Parish District Court for the December 2020 murder of Jacoby Ware. The jury returned a verdict of negligent homicide, and Hardy was sentenced to the maximum term of 5 years in state prison. On October 23, 2023, Hardy pleaded guilty to the federal firearms charge and was sentenced on February 22, 2024, to 36 months in federal prison, to be served consecutively to his state sentence. He will also serve 3 years of supervised release following his federal imprisonment. Number 1. Trayvon Washington. Trayvon Washington, a 21-year-old from Hammond, Louisiana, became a central figure in several high-profile criminal cases that established him as a highly dangerous individual with ties to violent activities. His involvement in organized and calculated illegal acts highlighted his prominence in criminal circles and his willingness to orchestrate and execute severe actions alongside accomplices. One of the most chilling incidents associated with Washington took place on August 28, 2021, in Franklinton, Louisiana. Prosecutors revealed that Washington, in collaboration with Deanna Johnson and other associates, planned a targeted invasion at the home of Zyke Barker, a 23-year-old resident. Johnson acted as the bait, luring Barker outside, where Washington and his group ambushed him. Barker attempted to flee, but was pursued inside his home and struck multiple times. Evidence showed that Washington fired the fatal round, demonstrating a level of intent and brutality that underscored his dangerous persona. The group fled the scene with stolen firearms and personal items, only to crash their getaway car less than a mile from the house, leading to their immediate capture. Jurors were presented with incriminating evidence, including messages retrieved from an iWatch that documented the planning and execution of the crime. Washington was convicted of second-degree homicide, aggravated burglary, and theft of firearms, solidifying his reputation as a violent individual. Another grave accusation against Washington involved the tragic case of 14-year-old Tasia Foles. Foles had gone missing from a youth facility in early 2021, and months later, her remains were discovered in a wooded area in Ponchatoula. Forensic evidence and investigative efforts linked Washington and his associate Elijah Williams to the incident. While Washington was already in custody for the Barker case, authorities filed charges against him in Foles's case. This secondary case revealed his alleged role in the demise of a vulnerable minor, adding to the severity of his criminal profile. As of April 2024, he was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of release for his role in Barker's case, with additional legal proceedings pending for his involvement in Foles's case.